Northwestern University is agreeing to pay $75 million to the federal government in a settlement. The deal with the Trump administration would bring back hundreds of millions in federal research grants frozen earlier this year and end investigations on discrimination. But students and faculty are divided on the deal, with opponents blasting it as government overreach, while supporters say it was a result of the university's failure to protect Jewish students. Northwestern leadership, meanwhile, insists the university will keep its autonomy.
It was the best and most certain method to restore our federal funding, both now and in the future. I'm deeply grateful for the Board of Trustees, which authorized the funding, frozen research grants over the past 7 months. But at a cost of roughly $40 million a month, this was simply not sustainable. As I said before, suing would have cost time and money that we believe the university could not risk.
Joining us are Laura Beth Nielsen, a sociologist at Northwestern University, Jonah Rubin, an organizer with Jewish Voice for Peace, and on Zoom, Lisa Fields Lewis, national chair of the Coalition Against Anti-Semitism at Northwestern, or CAAN. Thanks to all three of you for joining us. Laura Beth, university leadership, they have said that this is the best available option to restore this funding. What's your reaction to that argument and to this settlement?
Well, it's important to remember the context in which this is happening, which is that the Trump administration withheld lawfully appropriated funds and threatened in the future to withhold funds. This is illegal, to advance their own policy preferences. There's a lot to talk about in this deal, and the constitutionality and legality about each individual provision is worth exploring, but the context in which this is happening is that the Trump administration is using its funding as a cudgel to force Northwestern to enact their policy preferences, some of which are unconstitutional and many of which are illegal.
And we'll get into some of that a little bit more in this conversation as well. But a lot of people have criticized the university for not holding out and taking this to court, as Harvard University has.
Right.
But the President Biden has said that that would take years. We can't risk that.
Well, it didn't take years for Harvard to begin having their funding restored. And while all of us are concerned about anything on campus that creates divisions or makes people feel excluded, what we're looking at is the removal of science and the scientific method and review of research proposals through peer-reviewed scientific processes. So even the faculty who are relieved to have their funding restored and for whom this might look like a good deal are very concerned about the policy implications associated with political meddling in science.
Lisa Fields Lewis, you and the coalition that you work with, you all support this deal. Tell us why.
We think it's a great first step in making sure that Jewish students are protected on Northwestern's campus. We have been working closely with students and faculties and aggrieved parties and kind of helping them have an audience in front of the government with stories of frightening Title VI violations. And all I can tell you is that this is happening to Northwestern, and it's not happening to dozens of other schools around the country. It's not happening to Amherst. It's not happening to Dartmouth. Northwestern's administration seems to be, by government findings, extremely in violation of U.S. law from 1964 of Title VI. And we're just thrilled that now Northwestern has to really make sure that Jewish students and all students feel safe on campus. And there are, I think, 100 different provisions of this deal. So obviously it was considered a serious violation. There are almost 60 paragraphs, and the $75 million fine is enormous. I think it's the second biggest after Columbia's $200 million. And I just would say there's a reason why Northwestern's in the crossfires of the government here, and they seem to have crossed a line, and we're really happy that the government took this first step.
You mentioned government findings, and yesterday at your organization's press conference, you all talked about some of the details and the information that people had been sharing with the government. Is there a government report, or what? How can the rest of us know what Northwestern is guilty of?
Well, after our ex-president Schill spoke at Congress last year, they published the findings. So if anybody wants to comb through that, you can see some of the accounts of what happened at school. Most of the student OCR complaints are confidential and made through us or in confidence in order to protect their privacy and make sure that they were not retaliated against. But I would encourage everybody to read the document of the entire testimony of Schill at Congress and then behind closed doors. It's utterly shocking. There was an example of the provost offering to take a certain brand of dip, of hummus, out of the cafeterias as a nod to the BDS movement, hoping that that would be considered a give. So we got a really interesting inside scoop into what was going on in that negotiation, if you will. It should have never happened in the first place, but all of that is public knowledge now.
So, Jonah, this deal, it undoes the Deering Meadow agreement that the university struck to end the pro-Palestinian encampments that were on campus last year, calling for further restrictions on when and how students can protest near campus buildings. What concerns do you have there?
You know, this is an agreement that does nothing to protect the safety of Jews on campus. The Deering Meadow agreement granted scholarships to Palestinian students fleeing from Gaza, fleeing from the genocide, in order to study at one of the prestige institutions in this country. Taking away their scholarships does not make Jews safe. Making a Palestinian professor who the university brought as part of its Scholars at Risk program to Northwestern, kicking him out does not make Jews safe. And taking away a space for Muslim and MENA students to pray and express their culture does not make Jews safe. Jews have always thrived in places that value minority rights and minority religious rights. And to see Northwestern sacrifice those rights in order to kneel down before Trump, in order to take the easy path out, as a Jew, as a person who values these types of minority rights, offends me.
Laura Beth, what does all this mean? You know, this deal, it releases the $790 million in research grants that had been on pause since April. The university has had to make concessions such as providing more information to the government about its hiring, admission, and academics. We've talked about the $75 million fine, second highest, second to Columbia University. What does all of this mean for the university and students?
Yeah, well, first, I think it's important to say that the agreement explicitly states that Northwestern is not admitting that it
Correct.
that
to
it
clarify,
has, right, just to clarify
earlier.
that. But what it means is that we are beholden to the Trump administration's policy preferences on things that have nothing to do with Title VI and anti-Semitism on campus. The remedies under Title VI, if there are race violations, or under Title IX, if there are gender violations, the remedy for that is not the removal of all federal research funds. There's a process under those civil rights laws. I study them myself. This is not the process. So, but what it means is that Northwestern has given up the rights of our students that they enjoy. So First Amendment rights, we've given up academic freedom to research in really important areas. Hormone research, research on disparity, right? Because not all the grants are coming back. So only some grants are coming back, and grants about gender. So there's the transgender issue, which is really important to a lot of members of our community. Gender non-binary and trans students who need medical care, folks who want to do research in that area, the kind of hormonal research that is also being used for everything from cancer to acne. Hormonal research is really important. Those grants may not come back. Grants about racial disparities in medical and outcomes may not come back because they're considered DEI. So we've given up a lot of ground that has nothing to do with the question of anti-Semitism on our campus.
Lisa, what do you say to that?
Well, we're here specifically to talk, in our case, about anti-Semitism via the Coalition of Against Anti-Semitism at Northwestern, and that's the issue that we care the most about. The fact that we are in this position is largely because anti-Semitism went unchecked at Northwestern for so long that these fines were assessed against Northwestern. And the fact is that, like, when I listen to these allegations of genocide, and there are these broad allegations without any substantiation behind it. We wouldn't be here if actual students didn't come forward with claims of feeling unsafe and harassed by faculty and by other students in clubs and in classrooms, by their peers and by their faculty. So from our perspective, that's the key thing we wanted to solve against. And with regard to the demonstration policy, keep in mind, it feels a little like scare tactics, because students are still allowed to demonstrate, but there is time, place, and manner. And you cannot disrupt other students from trying to get across during Meadow. You can't disrupt other students from trying to take tests. We had complaints against students who couldn't concentrate because they were screaming outside of their classroom. As long as the protests stay in line with Northwestern rules, norms, and American law, we're fine with all of that. But it crossed the line. That's why we're here in this place.
Yeah, let's be clear. Public polling shows that the vast majority of American Jews do not support the Trump administration's authoritarian attacks on higher education. We believe that those attacks make anti-Semitism worse, not better. And there's a very good reason for that, right? It's because Trump administration is trying to use Jews as the face of its attacks on trans students, as the face of its attacks on international students who come to this country to try to live and study at our beautiful institutions, to try to make Jews the face of attacks on students of color. At Jewish Voice for Peace, we stand up and we say, no, you do not get to attack other vulnerable populations. Our freedom, our liberation is bound up intimately in the ability of other minorities, religious, ethnic, to thrive. And so we stand hand in hand with them and with the vast majority of American Jews in saying that these attacks on higher education should not be done in our name and do not make us safer.
Lisa, what do you say to that? Because we've heard that argument before, that the Trump administration is using anti-Semitism as an opportunity, and we've heard it from our guests here tonight, as an opportunity to seek to gain control over institutions of higher ed. What do you say to that?
Well, again, I go back to what I said at the beginning. First of all, again, I read these things and I hear these things. They feel like broad scare tactics without any substantiation behind it. From the beginning of the Trump campaign, there have been allegations of fascism and what's going to happen to our country, but there's not a whole lot of meat there to back it up. So I really think that, we have to look at that. And it's really, I'm really concerned about Northwestern here. And let's look at the fact that this is not against all universities around the country. This is a select few that really crossed the line into illegal anti-Semitic behavior. And that's why Northwestern is in the crosshairs. If this was flat out all universities around the country, we might have a different discussion. But Northwestern clearly crossed the line here and ignored the discrimination against and the harassment of Jewish students, and that has to be addressed.
All right, that's where we'll have to leave it. My thanks to all of the three of you for sharing your thoughts with us. Laura Beth Nielsen, Jonah Rubin, and Lisa Fields Lewis. Thanks. Best of luck to you.
Thank you so much.